Guys, thanks for having me over. Today, let's talk about how you can see better and further in difficult scenes with the new AUTODOME Gen 6 cameras.
Ronnie, you're new to videos with us. You're the new product manager for the Gen 6 Dome up in Bosch in Lancaster.
Correct.
So you're going to add a lot to this conversation. I really appreciate you stopping over and being involved.
My pleasure.
So let's get right into this. How do we see better?
Well, to see better, first, you have to talk about the resolution that we're introducing, right? So we have both 2 megapixel 1080p cameras and our 4K cameras. And that allows us to view things that we haven't seen before, higher pixel density in the 8 megapixel cameras, 4K cameras. And 2 megapixel cameras are kind of the standard today for PTZs.
So the AUTODOME, the 2 megapixel, allows you to get out not 30x, but 40x now. So we're going to achieve distances that we couldn't do previously. The 4K, it's a 12x zoom, but you then gain what? Digital zoom after that,
Correct.
right? So you're still able to get those further distances. That higher resolution density gives you that digital zoom.
Now let's talk about difficult scenes. So I think probably first, one of the most typical difficult scenes is lighting. So with lighting, we have two challenges. We have one end of the spectrum, which is low light, and at the other end of the spectrum, we have difficult scenes, so we call them high dynamic range type scenes. Bright scenes combined with dark, shadows and things like that.
On the low light areas, we can talk about when you have little light, and then we use our starlight capabilities that are new and improved, better than ever. And on top of that, in completely no light scenarios, we've added infrared IR capabilities. So our cameras come with LEDs that are in the infrared range and help us see when there's no outside illumination sources at all.
I think the important part of that is those are also going to adapt based on how far you are zoomed out or zoomed in rather, right? So the further out you're looking, the IR emitters are going to adapt so that you have plenty of light at those distances in those situations where there is no light.
Correct.
Another difficult application I think that comes in pretty much all the time is applications where we need image stabilization. So park index, bridges, tall poles, things like that.
Yeah, I think that kind of lends itself back to seeing stuff at distance. And I think anybody who has used a PTZ before knows that if you've got a windy day and you're zoomed all the way in on something, you're all over the place, right? So having electronic image stabilization really changes the game and giving the operator, whoever's tracking an object, the ability to have a steady image so that they can track that object more efficiently.
And there's two different options with this, right?
Correct.
One camera has electronic image stabilization, and the other offering has optical image stabilization.
So the 1080p cameras, the 2 megapixel cameras have the electronic image stabilization, and the 4K 8 megapixel camera has the optical image stabilization.
One of the other applications that's really kind of come into tune lately is for the camera to have the ability to see above the horizon. Mm-hmm. So that is tilt the camera up higher than its height and see at a distance above the horizon.
Yeah, I think, traditionally when we had situations like that where maybe we needed to see up further than where maybe the mounting position was, traditionally you would have to maybe clear the tilt height, but ultimately you'd be looking up into the housing, right? You'd be cut off. Mm-hmm. So the Gen 6 changes that where you're not going to have an obstruction in the field of view. So an example would be if you're in a bridge application, you're not just seeing or worried about what's on the roadway or maybe the surrounding areas, but you need to see up a little bit, right? And that's going to be a perfect application for that type of camera.
Pretty neat. That the drop bubble adds that capability to the Gen 6. How about accuracy on target? That's another application we can talk about a couple things that, from an application standpoint, accuracy on target. This Gen 6 camera has a really neat new closed loop positioning system that kind of offers a couple of key capabilities.
Yeah, correct. So the two main capabilities, A is accuracy. You're getting way better accuracy when it comes to how you tilt the camera, how you pan and tilt it. That really helps focusing on the target in further ranges when you're utilizing the 40x zoom, right? But on top of that, since you're in a closed loop, you always know where your home position is, so you don't have to worry about drifting anymore. If over time you would see it in older systems where you drift, Nowadays, it's not going to be a problem throughout the lifetime of this camera.
Yeah, and I think anybody, like, again, going back to anybody who's used the PTZ or is familiar with them, knew that that was a real thing, right? That you had a real challenge you had to deal with, where you'd have to go back and self-calibrate to get your XY coordinates back exactly where you had them placed before. And the Gen 6 introduces this new technology to where we're not having to worry about that, because worst case scenario, it drifts far enough to where you're not getting the incident at that specific scene.
One other neat new feature, which is, I'll call it a user interface feature, but it lends itself to easily, tracking a target or accuracy on target, is snap to zoom.
Yeah, so I think this feature is really helpful, especially for, let's face it, not everybody's used to doing either with a mouse or a keyboard. Getting on target can take some time, right? So what this does is allows you to draw a box, and the camera will actually zoom itself in on the object or the area that you drew a box around. So it just lessens that time, gets you on target, and then you can track from there.
How about we talk about one of Bosch's signature feature set, and that is the intelligent video analytics. We all refer to it as IVA, but let's talk a little bit about intelligent video analytics. What does the Gen 6 come with standard out of the box?
So the Gen 6 will come with the IVA Pro buildings and the IVA perimeter packs.
Brad, so what do those two things get you? Let's talk specifically about Pro Building. When would I use Pro Building?
So Pro Buildings is going to give you a zero calibration ability to pick up people and vehicles, right? And I think traditionally what this solves is if you have a bunch of these around your perimeter and you were really only just interested in people, before now or before IVA Pro Buildings came around, you were calibrating each and every camera. That goes away now, right? So it's in some of the newer fixed cameras, or all of the new fixed cameras. It's now in the Gen 6. So if your application requirement means I need to track a person on my perimeter, it's going to do that with zero calibration. That makes installation, which we'll talk about later, and programming and functionality that much faster and to give you the result.
And for greater distances, I think the Pro Perimeter is what we would need for that, right?
Yeah, so IVA Pro Buildings, I think the concept originally was more indoors and further, not long distance outdoors. Perimeter gives you that so that you can do those more challenging scenes.
And then addition to those smarts that we get with those intelligent video analytics, I think one of the key things that I was truly surprised with the capability and the plus to the capability is auto tracking.
Yeah, so auto tracking is that much more enhanced now. You couple it with the absolute positioning where we're not drifting our XY coordinates, and now the analytics engine, we're on target all the time.
We did some videos that cover some of the capabilities of mixing fixed cameras with this Gen 6 camera and the added capabilities and the true, feature set that this auto tracking brings to the table. I was kind of blown away by it, and I think that it adds a lot, especially, you don't have to have the fixed cameras attached to it, but having a fixed camera as a sensor and then letting the PTZ kind of follow an object that triggers an event in one of the IVA setups within the fixed camera. So I think the auto tracking really kind of took off with this new Gen 6, with the new capabilities of the Gen 6. When we get beyond that, what else do we have with this new Gen 6?
Another thing I think we need to talk about is the integration and adaptability of the Gen 6. Specifically, the first thing would be 3 uniquely configurable streams as an option.
As a large corporation or organization that needs to record and have operators in the field, you might have scenarios where you have different requirements or different constraints that you have to consider when you're using your PTZ. So having 3 streams would allow you to have something like a high resolution live view for the operator, while you're also on a separate stream, you're recording it in a different bitrate or resolution. And meanwhile, you can also send a third stream back to headquarters or a remote location that has different throughput limitations. So as you have those constraints forced upon you, you can still adapt and have an integration that suits you and your business needs.
All being independent of each other, and you can use it as you need to.
Correct.
Okay. Another thing is going to be the introduction of having fiber optic capability?
Fiber optic capability. We've had fiber optic capability, we'll call it at the mount, but now basically we've even pushed it out further, which means no copper cable between the camera head itself or the electronics and the fiber optic transmitter, the media converter. In these new options, the fiber optic is made very, very simple. You buy that fiber optic option for either the wall mount or the pendant pipe mount. And what this allows you to do is very simply select the SFP module for the type of connector you want, the speed you want, and things like that, and effectively slide that module right into the socket on the mount. And now you're spun up and you're ready to connect to the camera with fiber optic all the way out at the end of the mount, right at the top of the dome. So there's no copper cable in the middle that somebody can disconnect or something can happen to or anything like that. So fiber optic all the way to the top of the dome. I think that's a great new feature.
Let's talk a little bit about how the installation concept is improved versus the Gen 5. How did we make it that much better?
Yeah, I think installation in general, every generation we try to improve and make it better. This time you can see that our ability to manipulate the camera with one hand and the ease of hanging it on its hinge is improved over the previous generation. So once you put it on, you only need the one hand to screw in everything and do it fast and safe, which I think is an important capability in the field. I think you guys have a lot of videos on it.
We did a lot of videos on the mounting options and even conversions from the old Gen 5 series to the new Gen 6 series.
Special thanks for you for coming out and spending your time and going through all of this with us.
Thanks for having me over.
It's great to have the moving camera product team in Lancaster. It makes it great for you guys to be able to get out in the field, for us to get up there and work with you, but again, for you to attend events like this and have input into them and collect information to take back to make the product better. We really appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me over. Glad to be here. Always a pleasure collaborating.
So as always, if someone needs a demo, needs more information about the Gen 6, wants to check it out in person, how can they reach us?
They can send us an email at support@midchest.com.
Sounds good.